Okay, my loves. I know there are a lot of you that are out there that are really wondering, how do I even set boundaries anymore? Maybe you didn't grow up with great boundaries. Maybe boundaries weren't really modeled well for you, or maybe you were told that you cannot have boundaries. Maybe you're tired of being gaslighted in your relationships, and you're tired of feeling crazy all the time and guilty for trying to make a difference in your life. If this is you, then I want you to come schedule a call with me. Let's chat about the Unashamed Image Program. The Unashamed Image Program is geared towards you specifically. I am going to be helping you in our next upcoming session of the Unashamed Image. I am personally going to train you how to not feel crazy when someone is gaslighting you, how to be able to stand your ground, to keep your boundaries intact, and to also see through the bull crap. I am also going to be teaching you how to set really confident boundaries that you can really rely on. And I'm going to help you communicate them in a way that really makes sense. Basically, I'm going to help you live a life free of shame and on your terms. If you are ready and you are done feeling all the shame and guilt for trying to set boundaries, if you are not willing to live another moment the way you are right now and in somebody else's shadow, then this is the time to schedule that call with me. It's completely free, no pressure, just love, just support. Go to www.erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. Scroll down the page to where it says, Let's Chat About Working Together. Click on that button and it'll take you to my booking page. If you're ready to live the unashamed life, schedule that call. Let's get you in the Unashamed Image Program, my loves. From my heart to your heart. Bye. Welcome to the other side of the struggle. This is a podcast where we talk about trauma, how to heal it, and then how to take it and use it to unlock your mission and your potential, and to use it to live your very best dream life. When you're dealing with betrayal trauma, it can be hard to know how to heal it, how to stop the pain, and to know what your next steps are to take in your own life. And these are the questions that we try to answer here. Trauma has the ability to rob us of our joy and identity, which is why it's so miserable to experience. But with the right tools and with the right mindset, we can totally reclaim that joy and even use this trauma to strengthen ourselves so that way trauma does not knock us off of our joy again. Living your dream life should be a non negotiable, but trauma tends to try to negotiate that with you. And even though trauma is not something that we will completely ever be free of in our life, the pain is negotiable. This is why I created Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching and this podcast, is because I want my listeners, I want my clients to live, truly live free from the prison that trauma can put you in. I want you to live on the other side of the struggle. Okay, I want you to stop what you're doing right now for just a minute, and I really want you to hear me out. I want you to go right now to erinanderson.kartra.com/page/heart of gold. There you are going to find a free meditation just for you from me. This meditation is amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about what it's going to give you. Okay? Number one, it's going to help boost your confidence. If you are dealing with trauma, then you are most likely dealing with a confidence issue as well. And it's something that you are really, really wanting back. Number two, it is going to help you find security in your situations in your life because it's going to help you gain a sense of self-love and some self-trust. The third thing this is going to give you is an ability to escape the trauma that you're experiencing right now, this very minute, and help you find peace and joy and love and a deep appreciation for you and your experiences. This is going to really help you reconnect with yourself. So, that is very, very, very important when you are dealing with healing from trauma. So, again, I'm going to tell you what that website is that you need to go to. erinanderson.kartra, KARTRA.com/page/heart of gold. Capital HEARTOF, capital GOLD. Go check out this meditation. Please claim it for yourself because it is 100% a gift from me to you to help you heal right now from trauma. All my love. Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. Guys, I am so excited to introduce to you a new guest speaker on the podcast. Her name is Lark Galley. I don't know if you guys follow Lark, but I have been a good friend with Lark for several years. We were introduced by a common friend. But let me tell you a little bit about Lark. She spent 25 years in a corporate career before going out on her own as an entrepreneur. The suicides of her father and her son reinforced what she'd been hearing from many of her high-achieving clients, that they felt unworthy and incapable of reaching their goals. And Lark went from coaching on the externals to focusing on why each person matters. And because of this and because of the things that she speaks out against and the way that she shows up for her clients, she's a published author, speaker, and trainer, and her goal is to help 100,000 people choose to stay on this planet and step into their greatness. And Lark, I just want you to know I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today because I really, even though it's a little bit of a different audience, you know, people from trauma, well, I guess it's really not. I mean, the women that I talk to, you know, they deal with their husband's addictions and a lot of betrayal. But I feel like this is a topic that can totally cover like all areas of trauma. You know what I mean? Right. And it's incredible because, you know, people, like I hear this all the time from people that have loved ones that committed suicide. They're like, I thought he was so happy. You know, like we really seriously have no idea of that inner turmoil that's going on inside of someone else.
No, I totally agree. I mean, take my son, for example, 19 years old. He's a freshman at the University of Utah in mechanical engineering, something he had wanted to do since he was 5 years old. He had friends, he had hobbies, and yet a few things happened all at once, and he acted on an impulse, and he was gone. And you're right. We look at that and I say, why didn't I see it? Why didn't I know? What could I have done? And all of these why questions. And in the beginning, I almost wanted to take on that to myself, as maybe we do when one of our loved ones does something that hurts us or hurts themselves, hurts their progress. And we're thinking, why wasn't I enough for you?
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's like a really good way to explain this because I can't tell you how often I hear that with my clients is why am I not enough? And and I will say this, like I don't know that a lot of people know this about my journey, but suicide was I really seriously contemplated suicide at least twice in my life. And luckily I had angels that talked me off of that and like come on back. And I feel like, and now I know why that was something that the adversary pressed so heavily upon me is because, of what I'm speaking out against now and the way that, I'm helping other women
I
heal
totally
these.
agree.
Yeah, yeah,
In my life, I've had three different coaches who came into my life when I needed them so very desperately, and they had huge impacts in my life.
yeah,
And each one of these three coaches earlier in their life had had suicidal ideation to the point where they planned out how they were going to do it. They were just minutes away. And someone or some event intervened so that they did not take their lives. And then I look years later how they impacted not only me, but
mm,
thousands of people. And so that's what I try to explain to people. Even in your darkest moments, there is a reason why you need to stay here, why your message matters, and why you need to keep showing up, because you could be that person that saves the life of someone else down the road who impacts them. And that person could be your children. It could be your
yeah,
spouse. It could be someone you love so dearly.
yeah, yeah. Like, oh, no life is so it's not a mistake. Like, no life is a mistake. And this is something, that I love speaking to my clients about is this idea that God doesn't make mistakes. And if you are his greatest creation, what does that say about you? Right? And what a beautiful thing to think about for just a minute. Like, just to really sit there and marinate in that energy of that must mean I'm a miracle,
Exactly.
you
And
know?
you have a special message and a special mission to accomplish on this earth. And the thing that I've learned through my son's suicide is that we are all interconnected. We
Yes.
can't separate ourselves from society, from our community.
Yes.
We need each other so much. And hopefully, COVID taught us that.
Yeah. Yeah. I giggle a little bit, but I I have to say that I kind of feel like that was just a little bit of a shake, for us to kind of recenter, look inward, because truthfully, if that's the worst to come before Christ is here, then that's not that bad. But I have a feeling like it definitely caused us to have to really address some things within ourselves. So, let's talk a little bit about this topic, which today is, seeing your own self-worth, you know? And I feel like also that kind of goes along a little bit with what we've been already talking about is like detecting your own mission and purpose. And so, like, one of the things that I love to say is I am so grateful that I dealt with childhood abuse. I am so grateful that I was sad enough to contemplate suicide. And I know that sounds silly, like, I know that sounds terrible. But I'm also so grateful that I dealt with a very severe addiction with my husband. And, like all of the betrayals that come up in my life, I just had one last week or so I felt like where I had a client that just pulled out of her contract and wouldn't really communicate well with me. And I felt like that was a betrayal. But the thing is I, as I look at each one of these betrayals and each one of these things that have come up in my life, there's something underneath each one of them that I can learn from. And like the greatest lesson I've been learning the last couple of weeks is like how I can connect better to the people I'm on this earth to serve, you know? But all of it has actually directed me to speaking for women and coaching women and showing up in a way to help women who are really seriously dealing with betrayal trauma and worried about their children stumbling across the pornography and like what does this mean for my family now and like having all of this pressure on her shoulders because now she's the only one she feels like able to defend the family because her husband's just totally took a bite by the dragon, you know what I mean?
Right,
And
exactly.
it's like there's something here. There's something to this. There's a reason why we're dealing with the things we're dealing with.
Well, I think back before my son's death, and I think at my shallow understanding of grief and being able to empathize with others who were going through grief. I thought I understood it, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I walked in a grief that was so devastating to the point of almost debilitating me, to
Yeah.
not to get out of bed, to not wanting to do anything in life. Like just to be in bed, pull the covers over my head and not face any kind of reality. That depth of grief has allowed me to go out and to help other people who are going through what I've been going through. And because I had one mother, she had lost her teenage daughter to suicide.
Oh.
And I was talking to her. And at first, I don't think she realized that I was telling her that my son had also died. And it took a few minutes for her to kind of get through the brain fog. And then she looked at me and she said, "Oh, you understand." I'm like, "Yeah,
Oh.
I understand."
Oh. And I'm sorry. I'm like over here getting teary-eyed and and weepy because, I've got six kids and like, my oldest, he'll be turning 16 this July and like the idea of me losing my son to something like this is like,
You
oh,
know what? And the thing is that we don't even see it. The kids are going through things that we in our generation never went through.
yeah.
The social media, the pressures to be perfect, the pressures
Mm-hmm.
that not only society, but we as parents put on our children. And
Yeah.
we have got to take a step back and say, in the grand scheme of things, if my child isn't, the best sports player, the best violinist, the best XYZ, the best student,
Yeah.
honestly, does that really matter in the grand scheme? If they aren't around because they have felt so much pressure and so much a judgment from us as their parent,
Yeah.
what does it matter if they, made first chair in violin or not? Seriously.
Yes, right. And you just made me feel so much better by the way, because I look at my kids and I definitely want like the very best for their future. Of course, every parent wants that, right? But I've like recently, and I'm also a teacher. And so like I see both ends of the spectrum here and but like recently I've just been like when it comes to like the grades and stuff like that, like, okay, yes, I know you can do better. What are you planning on doing about that? But at the same time too, like I don't feel like they should give up their life for these grades.
Right.
Like I feel like, my two teenagers, they do have like Nintendo Switches and my second son, my 13-year-old, he has a VR and the rule is that you've got to have at least C's in order to be able to get on and play on these things. So he's pretty good at maintaining his grades and stuff. But I notice like all of this pressure and like this shutdown from my kids. I see it in my clients. I see it in students and this idea of like we're behind. We're not there. We're behind. We're behind. We're behind. We're behind. We're behind. And I'm just like, why on earth are we selling this? You know? And it like you like I said, you've made me personally feel better as a mom because I've just kind of been like, at this point, you know what? I am going to just allow them to have a happy life. Because I feel like in the end, and like you were saying, in the grand scheme of things, that's the thing that's really going to matter in the end.
Right.
So, how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. You know, they've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really, really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
Right. And I feel so different in the way I parent now. Before my son died, it was fairly militant. It was, mom and dad's way or the highway. You will follow our rules. You will maintain whatever grade or any of that. And now I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm not your judge. I'm your advocate. I'm here to bless and guide you and help you because the world is so difficult. They have enough people out in the world judging them and shaming them
Mm,
that as parents, I want my child to be able to come to me with whatever issue it is, and I'm not going to wig out, whether it's mom, I'm moving in with my boyfriend, or mom, I'm pregnant or I'm gay. We need to address this as parents and say, how am I going to react? And am I going to
yeah.
simply react in love?
Yeah.
And love no matter what, and they will push your buttons because that's their job.
Yes.
Just, you know what? I've let go of trying to control, especially my kids. There's no control. I thought I had so much control, and honestly, we have no control. So let
No.
that go.
Well, and you can disagree with someone. You can totally disagree with someone, but you can disagree in love. Like my oldest son, he's a heck of a good kid. Like I will say that. Like he's a heck of a good kid, but like there were things and I feel like I feel like you do have to have some balance with some things. 'Cause he was into when he was at his lowest point in his teenage life, like right when he was beginning his teenage years, he was just a very unhappy person, and he was getting into pornography that was actually about abusing women. Like it was really bad. Really, really bad stuff. And at that point I was like, okay, we need to
Yeah.
we need to do some intervention and stuff like that. And I do feel like, but I feel like the thing that makes the difference here is the amount of love you give. You think about the Christ and how he reacted to the woman who was brought to him in an adultery. Adultery is not a good thing. That's not a good thing. And back then she could have been killed. And I should say, quote unquote, should have been by the law, right? But he just simply said, I don't judge you, just do better.
Exactly.
Like what if we responded to our kids that way, but not only that. And I feel like this is where we're really going to start like meshing here. What if we responded that way to ourselves?
Yes.
Because you've got to
Yeah.
give, you can't give what you don't have, you know what I mean?
Right. There's that. And then I have found that the kinder and less judgmental I am towards other people, I am kinder and less judgmental of myself.
Yeah.
And I have learned recently about grace, and I give myself so much grace. If there are days I don't want to put pants on, that's okay. No pants today. or whatever it is. And because I'm allowing myself grace, I'm allowing my loved ones grace, I'm allowing a stranger grace. I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on in their life. I can't judge them. And in the past, I would have been very judgmental. I would have thought, well, I can do it. So what's their problem? And now I'm like, hey, man, you do you over there and good luck because I can't even begin to judge you.
Right. Right. And I feel like I can really connect to this because I remember like one of the biggest aha moments. There's two of them actually going through, what I went through with my husband is number one, I had an addiction to control.
Yeah.
And the reason why. The reason why, and that's not a judgment on anyone else either, by the way, when I say that, because hearing a coach say, you might have an addiction to control can be a little bit like, are you kidding me? Like, you just judged me, right? It's not a judgment at all.
Mhm.
Because I was there. I was totally there. And I feel like it's kind of a reaction that we take on when we've been dealing with trauma so long, you know? And the second piece to this was when I realized how deeply I judged myself. Like I remember actually being out in my yard, like walking up and down the sidewalk. I was on a doTERRA call at the time. And sitting there like just shitting on myself and like bad, bad, bad Aaron and like all of these really, really horrible negative thoughts. And I was like it just kind of bing, light bulb went on. And I was like, holy cow, I am not nice to me. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
And no wonder I was struggling. I was
Yeah.
sitting here blaming my mom. I was blaming my husband. I was blaming my neighbor. I was blaming my coworkers, people that didn't show up for me, and I wasn't showing up for myself.
Right. Exactly. That's where it goes. And then like you mentioned, we shame ourselves for the actions of other people when we can't control their actions, and we're concerned that other people will judge us. I remember when my son died, I immediately thought, oh my goodness, what are the neighbors going to say? Or what will people think about me as a parent and as a mom? Or why didn't she see this? Why didn't she know this? And I felt so much shame and stigma around the suicide. And it took a couple of days, and it took a couple of moms calling me and expressing their concern and also telling me about their children, how their children were struggling. And I very quickly realized that the message I had to share was not about me as a parent or a person. It wasn't about my son and how he took his life. It was about the opportunity that I now had to talk and to speak up so that other people could make a better choice, so that parents could know this is a concern. And my thought was, if I can save one other parent from having to go through what I have gone through, I will have changed the world. And whatever judgment or shame is brought on me, I'm willing to take it because I believe in this message so much. And that's what I think it needs to come down to. I mean, think about maybe the shame you felt or your
Yeah.
experience with your husband, but what has that allowed you to do and to bless the lives of other people and to speak up? It's changed lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even now, like I had a little bit of feedback from a couple of clients telling like a couple of unhappy clients actually telling me that they felt judged by me, and I was like, "Oh, like I'm sorry. I didn't like that totally was not like anywhere even in my radar."
Uh,
But obviously there's got to be something in me, and as I've been digging deeper, I've seen like not necessarily just the judgment, but like in ways that I have not been authentic because of like patterns and thought things that I've had going on. But I've got to say, like I've known you, before your son passed away, and
yes.
like now, and like I'm not saying you weren't genuine then. Like I loved you. I loved like how you showed up in your message and everything like that. But like now it's like you're locked in.
Right. Well, I'll tell you how I feel about that. It's like everything I had that I felt I was proud of in my life, right? Any kind of status or achievements in the world, they were gone. They didn't matter. Anything material, any awards I got at work, it didn't matter. And it was so stripped away. And the more I started talking and being authentic about this is what happened, this is how I felt, this is something you need to watch out for. The more authentic I could be, the freer I felt. Because,
Yeah.
I think about your life. Think about how, oh, I'm willing to talk about XYZ, but I'm not willing to talk about this little thing I'm keeping hidden in the closet. But honestly, like my book is kind of like a tell-all. I did not sit down to write that book and talk about, my unstable childhood with food insecurities and my dad's undiagnosed mental illness, and then the issues with my son, and creating how my unstable childhood created these issues as a parent, which created issues with my son. I didn't realize all that. That's not what I sat down to do. But the more that I shared and was willing to like just say, this is me, this is my issues, the freer I felt. And I'm like, there are no skeletons in the closet. They're all out on parade for everybody. And I feel that, if we can come to that point where we lovingly accept the situations in our lives that have made us who we are, we can feel so free and so full of love because we have loved and accepted who we are and what we've gone through, that we can turn around and love and accept everybody else and what they're going through. And honestly, I'm like, I feel so free in being able to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. It totally does. And it's really interesting because my my dice were about ready to fall, so that's why I was like pushing them back. But I I've been thinking about what you're saying here about this element of freedom. I feel like that's how we know we're on the right path. That's how we know we're doing the right things. Because number one, it really pulls out more of that genuine authenticity out of us. That genuine authenticity creates this freedom that you're talking about. But I have like clients that are really, really worried about like being totally open and genuine with with their spouses because they're afraid of what someone about how they're going to react or how they're going like what's their next step. Are they going to go look at the porn again? Are they going to like leave it open for my kids to see? Like I have like these bounds that I can operate in, otherwise everything is going to fall apart. But one of the things I say is if you can't be open and genuine, you'll never truly know yourself. Like you're restricting yourself in a very big way because of the fears of what other people will do, but also, um, how can we expect other people to trust us with those skeletons that they've got in their closet? Like, how can we really trust, like, how can we expect our loved ones, our husbands, our children to trust us with their worst secrets when we can't be open about how we're feeling too,
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
And by telling those things that we're feeling, maybe we can't control how the other people react to it,
No.
but we can say, I'm standing in my truth, and this is what I need to say, so that you can then make your own decision about what you're going to do. But we're trapped, we're in a jail if we are not living true to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally, totally, totally. So there's a couple other things here that I want to address. Again, like with this piece of freedom, I feel like for me personally, like I still have like my mom worries, I mean, when I building a business and having six kids, and they've all, like, two of them are almost three of them are teenagers, and like they're all so busy. They've all got so many things going on. They're all going in so many different directions, and they come home at night. I can't do like homework with six kids. I'm sorry, you can't do that. And and here they are, they're like, we want more time with you, mom. We want more time on the internet. We want. And there's definitely that mom guilt there, you know what I mean? Um, what do you say to moms? Because, when you're dealing with betrayal trauma, and you're dealing with this shame, and you're dealing with all this guilt, and you're dealing with all of this stuff coming up. And I think especially it was way worse for me when when I was dealing with my husband's addiction, because my judgment and my thoughts were seriously so clouded by the guilt and the shame. Like they really were. But now, you know, I'm realizing with my kids and stuff like that, obviously, they need time, and I'm, trying to be intentional and take time with that, but like them putting shame onto me is like a no-go.
Right, right. And we have the option to accept the shame or not, right?
Yes.
And honestly, there's one of you, there's six of them. You're already, kind of in a losing battle if you want to do time wise. But what I would say is a couple things. First of all, speaking from one who has done this, who would work a big corporate job and then come home at night and try to do a side hustle when my kids were little, because I was trying to free myself from the corporate job. I look at that and I think, you know, maybe I should not have been so engaged in the side hustle per se, or trying to like push that business, right? To allocate certain amount of time for work and then let the rest go to the side while my kids are young, while they need me so much, and not be so focused on what the world tells us we need to do, which is, you have to be the best mom, and you have to have the best business, and you have to be earning six figures a year in your side hustle, and this and this and this, and just say, if I can only do certain amount of things, what are they going to be? And so, number one, I would evaluate the amount of time, we spend in work, and maybe reevaluate how much that time is, right? And I'm going to
Mm,
just put that to the side and say, there are things that we can do to spiritually elevate so that our work goes forward without our having to put as much time. And I have many personal examples of that, of putting out intention and doing things that and I'll give you this example. So my youngest was 5. I had 3 kids under 10, between I think she was probably 10, 10, 6, and 5. And I was out running at 5:30 in the morning to get my exercise in. And I was feeling frustrated because corporate career, I had taken a step back in my commissions. I was pretty frustrated. I had switched over, lost a big client. And so my amount of money was down. And I was feeling really frustrated because it was like I had stepped back earning money 5 years from where I was before. And I was thinking about it. And I'm like, I cannot work any harder. I cannot put any more time in. I just didn't have
Have
any
it.
any of that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what can I do with this? Well, this is what I'm going to do. I started saying an affirmation, a specific affirmation to draw in my ideal client that would benefit both of us financially, right? That both of us would be very happy. And I said this affirmation 15 times a day for 30 days. And I would tell the other managers, what I was doing. And they always thought I was just like crazy because I would come up with these things and I was just putting mental effort into it. And they would laugh at me. And I'm like, no, no, I got this. Within 30 days, I had a call from a very big client in the Salt Lake Valley. I had talked to him one time before, the year before. He had shut me down, didn't even want to meet with me, wouldn't give me the time of day. He said, I want to see you. Come and I want to talk about switching my business over to you. I went in and within 30, within 30 days of that first meeting, he was my largest client, biggest sale I ever closed. And by the end of the year, I was the number one senior sales rep for my company globally. All right.
Wow.
And if you want to know what I did to achieve it, I didn't work harder. I didn't work, longer hours. I put some intentionality and I said, I need help. I need God's help because I can't do this. And so that's what I want to say is like, we think that we have to do everything and we don't have
Mm-hmm.
to do that much more. We have to engage with God in our business. So
Yes.
knowing that you can increase your business and God will take care of you financially if you put the pieces in the right order. So then back over to the motherhood side, there are certain touch points in a child's life during the day that we need to be there for. And if you can't be there for all of them, at least be there for a majority of them. And that is at least one parent is there in the morning when they wake up, when they come home from school, dinner time, and bedtime. And while it's not always feasible for us to be there at every single touch point, if we can be there for a majority. And so, for example, my husband was really big about dinner time. He mandated that we would all sit down together for dinner, and the kids knew they better be home for dinner, no matter what they were doing. I was to be home from work. He was home from work. We were all there, and we were having dinner. And that touch point helped create a lot of family interaction, a lot of funny times because of that dinner time. And then putting the kids to bed, I would try to make sure, let's have story time, let's read scriptures, let's have prayers, let's be together, so that was kind of some calming time as they were going to bed. So just the touch points are important. And then spending time with them when the kids come home from school or when we see them later in the day, often we say, how was your day? What does every kid say? It's just fine.
Yeah. It was okay. That's good.
So, yeah, you're not going to have a conversation with a teenager with that, right? So maybe you could say something like, what was the hardest thing that happened to you today? Or what was then the best thing that happened to you today? So that they can start feeling these emotions up, down. Or who did you serve today? Who did you see throughout your day that needed your help and you were able to bless their life? So these kind of questions that actually help create engagement. And then the other thing is to stop judging our kids. And what I mean by that is if we have an expectation for them and our spouse as well, and they don't do what we ask them to do, or they don't meet this expectation, how do we feel? Does our energy level drop? And if our energy drops because they didn't do whatever we thought they should do, then we have an expectation. But if we can accept wherever they are without expectation, then they can learn to trust us and say, oh, mom didn't freak out when I did XYZ. I know she probably didn't like it, but if she can be, okay with, or just like not judge me on that, maybe I can come to her when I'm struggling or I'm having a difficult time and she won't judge me or freak out on me. And listen more.
I agree.
Listen. That is so key. Listen.
So to my listeners right now, I want to like kind of pull this full circle to you for just a second because what Lark is saying here is like total solid, like excellent, great advice, but I can also like see within some of you saying, "Yeah, that's great, but what about me?" Right? I can totally see that. And when I started my healing journey, I probably would have been feeling the same way, like, yeah, that's great. What about me? Right? Because when we're dealing with a husband's addictions, I mean, we really are becoming so responsible for so many different aspects that are hard. They are hard, and we definitely don't feel like we should be juggling these pieces. But let me just kind of bring it back to you guys here for just a second. This is a possibility for your next step, like where you can be. Because, I'm with you, like Lark, those touch points with your kids and um, making sure you're there for the dinner and making sure that you're with your kids. And, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm having a conversation with myself right now. Like I'm there definitely for them when they get home and a couple other pieces, but I could probably show up a little bit more because they've been asking me to.
Well, the other
But
thing too is when you're there, be present.
yes, be
Think about it.
present.
Are you on your phone or are you thinking about other things? When you're there physically, be there mentally.
Yes. Yes. But my piece to this is I want you to know, listeners, that you can do this for yourself too. Like take her advice for a second and ask yourself, like, what are your touch points? What are your like where do you need to be present with yourself? Where do you need to be available for yourself? Because you do want to give these things to your families and stuff. But if you're feeling like it ain't there to give, and because, when I was first going through that trauma, it wasn't there to give. It totally wasn't, you
And
know?
I will tell you that I get up early in the morning and I spend the first 1 to 2 hours doing several things for me.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer, meditation, listening to uplifting material, reading uplifting material, working out, and then just getting myself ready for the day. Because I might not be able to control what happens in the middle of the day, right?
Yeah.
This can
Yeah.
go sideways.
So many different.
But if I can give myself that time in the morning, and it might not be 2 hours for you, it might be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But if you can show up for yourself, get grounded and centered in what is most important to you, then you'll be able to show up later throughout the day for the other people who so desperately need you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say, like, that's one of the things that I do too, is my morning is my precious time.
Yeah.
And it takes actually being really intentional, and it takes getting up and I do hear sometimes people saying things like, I just don't have the time, to carve out for me. And then if that's the case, you've really got to look and see what you've got to take off of your plate at
I
that
mean,
point because
think,
because you've got too much.
right? Think of mindless scrolling through social media.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more important? You're checking out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more important than spending 30 minutes with yourself? You're your most valuable asset.
Yeah. And you've got like this is where the intention piece comes in, it's one of my first pillars, in healing and living an unashamed life is you've to get intentional means you're going to have to create time. Because you've only got 24 hours in a day. You don't you
Right.
you can't create more than that. But you can say to yourself, I'm going to get up by 5 a.m. I know that's a little early for some people, but 5 a.m. is a good place. Or I'm gonna make sure the kids are in bed. Like my kids have to be in bed by this time, so that way I can take 30 minutes for myself here. I mean, really taking like you've gotta look at your day and start getting really intentional and start carving out some time for you if you're going to get to this next level. Because if you're constantly in the chaos and being pulled so many different directions, you're never going to find your worth. You're never going to feel it. You're never going to really see that mission and purpose. You're never going to have time to dig into your gifts, your talents, your mind, your heart, all of these things that can be really appreciated, and all of these things that truly God gave us to detect our mission and purpose. I'm an artist. I love to draw, I love to paint, I love to do these kinds of things, but that actually does so many things for my mission and purpose as a mom. My kids love it when I draw them a picture of their favorite character of themselves, or all these things. They love that. My clients love it when I draw a picture of Christ, healing, or like picking up the woman from from the ground. There's that's a talent that was given to me to assist in my mission and purpose. But you know what? I didn't know I had it until I started getting intentional with my time, you know? And so I know, like, I do want to like address this, and Lark knows this too. We understand the pain of grief, loss, feeling like, for me, you totally lost, somebody that was so, so, so precious and powerful to you. For me, I felt like I lost my marriage. You know what I mean?
Not only, for example, like not only did I lose my son, but I lost the future I had with my son. And
Yeah,
so in a situation where betrayal with a spouse, you lose what you think would have been your future, or this vision that you had seen. And so it is a grief
it
and a
is.
loss that you go through.
It is. And for me, I have to say, if the only thing you can do when you're feeling this incapacitating grief is lean into it. Feel it.
Because at some point you will have to feel it, to go through it, to get past it, right?
Yes. Well, and not only that, it's almost kind of like you don't have a choice but to take time for it.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
Yep. The more you push it away or you don't acknowledge it, it's still there, and it's going to get
Yeah.
you at some point. So you might as well
Yeah.
embrace the pain. My son's death anniversary is coming up this month. So he's only it'll be 4 years this month. And I look back and I look at the lessons I have learned and the person I have become. And it's a hard lesson, because I think, would I take away all of the things that I have learned and this spiritual connection that I have with my son to have him back physically? I don't know that I would, because of the place that I am now. My relationship with my son did not stop. It's
Yes.
continued on. And my relationship with him is better now than it was before.
Yeah.
Before we were so angry with each other. And now I know that he's proud of me because of what I'm doing to help further his story and his mission, and to explain that this is not a good thing. And we are working together to try
Yeah.
to help people make better choices. And I just feel such a tight emotional connection to him. So if you're going through something that is hard and difficult, just know that with perspective, you might see this in a totally different light.
Yeah. And allowing yourself to and trusting yourself with this emotion, and ask, like taking it to the Lord, like you were saying, like, really, here's something that's really big, it's really heavy. instead of trying to run away from it and trying to fix everything yourself, because there's some things that you just can't fix.
Can't fix, yeah.
You just can't do that. But taking it to God and saying, I taking it to God and saying, ow,
Yeah. Yeah.
owie, 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 owie. I mean, even if that's all you can say, even like for me, I screamed at him for like almost an entire 4 hours. Screamed, 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 and finally had no energy left to do anything but just lay on the floor. But taking it to the Lord meant I didn't have to do it alone. I
Because we
didn't,
can't do it alone.
we can't.
We can't.
We can't, but like you're saying with your son, and because I've heard you talk about like the connection you have with him now, that hasn't ever really left your side. It's a different dynamic. And yes, you would love that future, with him, but you still have a type of future with him right now. For my husband, when I let go of the addiction, like just dropped it. You know, I talk about like grasping the knife handle and then finally just dropping it. Because that's exactly what it is when you finally let go of the pain and the grief and the trauma. Your hand is still hurting, it's still bleeding, but finally you can address the bleeding.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And my husband, he tells me the truth now. He doesn't feel like he has to hide anything from me.
Right.
He comes to me. Is he perfect? Has he quit the addiction? Not yet. But it doesn't like it has no bearing on my joy.
It has
Zero.
nothing to do with your worth. It's
No.
about him. But your ability not to judge him and not to become angry allows him to feel safe and coming to you
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, this happened.
Yeah.
You're saying, well, I'm here for you. If you need something from me, how can I help you? I look at my life with my son and I think maybe we made promises to each other before we came to this earth. And I seriously think that his promise to me was to help me become more Christ-like. And I could not have done it on my own.
Yeah.
And
Same
was
here.
this his sacrifice for his mother because he loved me so much? And my promise to him is that I will keep going. I'll keep sharing the message that we all have value
Oh,
and we
I'm gonna.
hey, and so look at the relationship with your spouse or your children or anywhere you feel, betrayed and say, did we make promises to each other? And how am I a better person because of this relationship? How has this person brought me closer to Christ? That's all it's about.
And what is it here to help me see, like, how is this going to open up my worth? How is
Mhm.
this going to really actually help me see it? Because if you're feeling worthless, not saying that what your spouse or the people that are hurting you, it's not okay, but they really actually can't take your worth from you.
Right?
It's not possible. It is something that you have to detect on your own. It truly is. It truly is. And once you can see that worth, and like that was one of the things like that was like incredible. And like when I put on the God goggles for just a minute, like let's get these God goggles on and actually see you. What does God see? And like I love like what you're saying here, like what does your son see? This promise that you made pre-earth life. For me and my husband, I can guarantee you, like we are total soulmates, even though my husband struggles with porn, even though, you know, he's coming to a very low part in his life at this moment, actually. I still love him, I still accept him, I still want to give him every opportunity to heal, but I'm not taking control of it,
Right.
because he's got to have his experience. So for me, my job, my promise to him is to allow him to suffer. I really, truly, it is
Yep.
because he needs it. He actually does need to have the hard in order for him to understand the good. For my husband, that's just the way he works, and I feel like we are kind of all that way a little bit. I had to have a deep, deep, deep internal suffering myself in order to see this beautiful, bright being that God created, you know? And for my husband, I can honestly say I would not be where I'm at today if he hadn't first and foremost helped me see like there was a whole other different possibility. When we were first dating, I realized that, some of the traditions I had been raised with might not have been the best traditions, and I can like, loving my mom, loving my dad, loving the people that raised me. I am actually really grateful for those as well right now, but and for my mom, I'm grateful for the way she showed up. You know, the abuse I suffered at my mom's hands, had she not done that, I wouldn't have had the need to search out Christ and search out the perfect parent that I needed. And like you're saying, and all of those things pointed to my worth. And really, I almost want to say that worth isn't a good enough word for what it is we're really trying to describe, because worth almost seems like there's a cap on that, and there's no cap on our glory, you
Mm.
know?
I want to ask you a question. I want you to listen to what comes into your heart. How much are you worth?
Are you asking me or my client or the
You and
people?
your clients. I want
Okay.
you to think. And I did this for myself years ago. And the answer that came back to me immediately was infinite. You have infinite worth. And that wasn't from me, that was from God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he sees us as we have infinite worth. Like we can't even understand how much we mean to him.
Yeah. And I even want to say infinite doesn't go far enough either. One of the best ways, because I have asked that question to myself, like, what am I worth? I will honestly say, like, there's no description.
Like we can't even begin to describe it because we
Mm-mm.
don't have the words or the understanding.
No, no, but I'll tell you this much. It is the most humbling thing to understand your glory, to not to just feel it, to understand how glorious you truly are. It is such a humbling experience. People who are truly confident are some of the most humble people I know. Like, I look at you, Lark, and I remembered like my first impression of you
I
was like, whoa,
remember that.
she's confident. She's confident. I love it. I do. I remember that first impression, and that was something I really respected with from you. But now, like, and I feel like humility has some serious depths, and I'm chipping at another level of mine at this moment, but you are so confident in your message. You just exuberate like this light. You are like Lark Galley 2.0. You know?
You
And
know,
and I love it. I love watching it.
and I just feel that all of the things that I used to think gave me the confidence or meant that I had arrived or in our world of status, it it means nothing. And everything comes down to love. Like seriously, that's what I learned from my son's passing is like it really is all about love.
Hmm.
And if I can show up in love, and whenever I get out of that, because I'm prone to, things that happen out in the world, and I'm like, oh yes, lead with love.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm doing, whatever situation, that's what I remind myself, lead with love. Because that really shows your confidence and your
Yeah.
self-worth is that if you can show up in love, then all of the rest doesn't matter.
And amen. And to take that one step further, my listeners, love yourself first.
Yes.
Love every part of yourself. Love the grief. Love the hurt. Love the tiger stripes on your stomach, love the love handles, love the gray hairs, the wrinkles, every bit of it, because once you are willing to love yourself the way you've been begging other people to do it, and really check into and say, what do I like? How do I want my husband to love me? How do I want my children to love me? How do I want my neighbor to love me? And then I want you to go back through that list and say, am I loving myself like this? Am I loving myself like this? Am I loving myself like this? Then you get into the understanding, because you're at that point now starting to be willing to love yourself, to really catch the vision of who you are, your message, your beauty, your glory, and everything that is you, and being able to then turn around and do, like, we've been talking with your kids, because that is such a concern. I know for you listeners, how are my kids going to be, with all this stuff happening in my home? If you're overflowing love, what is going to spill out on them? If you're overflowing pain, what is going to spill out on them? And if you're overflowing confidence and worth, what is going to spill out on them? So take some time, like Lark is telling us, and love yourself. What a beautiful message to end on, Lark. Thank you so much for showing up with us today and sharing your story with your son. I've got to say, I've felt him this whole time, and like just this beaming angel pride. Like I just love the beauty of this whole thing. And then I also actually want to thank your son for showing up with us today, because I don't know of any other better message than an angel like spreading that as well to those listening.
And I love to feel him with me. And I usually feel him whenever I'm sharing my story. That's why I love to share my story, because I know he's going to be here.
Yeah. Whew, this has been a tearjerker today. My gosh. That's good. It's a good thing. Thanks so much, Lark.
Thanks, Erin.
And we'll see you guys next week. Bye. Okay, so I've got a question for you. Have you joined my free Facebook group or Instagram page yet? If you haven't, go and do that. And this is the reason why. I always post my freebies, updated information, and all kinds of goodies for my community in that page. I'm also really active. I post videos, I answer questions. So if you guys really, really want to get in and interact with me, go like me on Facebook, go join my group, The Other Side of the Struggle, Healing from Betrayal Trauma. Come find me on Instagram, Erin Anderson, Betrayal Trauma Coach, and come follow me, because I always have something good there just for you, my audience, and I love connecting with you there. I also post anytime that I have groups going on. I talk sometimes about my programs. So if you guys are interested in working with me, or even just following me and getting as much free content as you possibly can, go hang out in my group. Go connect with the ladies that are there. Also come and join Immune and Unashamed for those married couples that are following me, because in that group, me and my business partner, Kaisen Kid, are also talking and offering some great content in there. So go join up. I hope to see you on the other side of the struggle. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna be awesome.